that starts the inflammatory response, and that puts the immune system in overdrive, and can, if the person is susceptible genetically, what their exposures are, like I talked about, can develop into autoimmune disease.
Hi, Amanda. Thank you so much for coming on the show. I'm so grateful that you are here to bring us some good information. I know that you're a functional medicine practitioner, and you and I have a past relationship, and I know that you're someone that can really serve the listeners of this podcast. So welcome on the show. Thank you so much. And I would like you to start with maybe your story of maybe your healing journey, or how you came to be a functional medicine practitioner, or anything you want to share.
Yes, awesome. Well, thank you, Amanda. I'm excited to be here. And I am a functional medicine physician assistant. And I, like most functional medicine providers, got here through a little bit of a curvy route, we'll say. And it started with me and my healing journey. And I think you'll find most functional practitioners that you talk to, how did they get here? It's either themselves or someone close to them who has had a healing journey that brought them to this realm of medicine. So my story starts a long time ago, like most of ours, but I had asthma and allergies as a child. Growing up, I really struggled with these respiratory problems. I probably had RSV as an infant. Back then, we didn't know what that was, but it required an ICU admission. And that's actually when I was diagnosed with asthma at the age of 1. And so I struggled through my whole childhood with asthma and seasonal allergies. In college, I started to get migraines. Very, very severe migraines. They would last a week or more. I had one that lasted 6 weeks, and I had to actually drop out of college due to this migraine. And looking back, just like autoimmune diseases, right? It's the perfect storm. There's lots of things happening. So I had these asthma and allergies, and as we'll talk about a little later, that was a problem in my gut. And then I had the flu. I had influenza, which was triggered my first migraine. And then, of course, the stress of college and all the eating inappropriately that accompanies college. So migraines started. I did have to drop out. And I just learned to live with these. I'd get a migraine and it would last a week, and I'd have to stay home from school and then later work due to these horrible migraines. And I tried all the medicines. I saw all the neurologists, and everyone, yeah, you've got migraines, and so you'll live with, learn to live with them, because the medications didn't work for me. The preventative meds, the fast-acting meds, nothing worked. So, that I was living my life as a PA at the time. We were actually living in Germany. My husband's in the military, or was, he just separated, but my husband was in the military and we were living in Germany. And my mother has autoimmune disease, and she actually started her healing journey. And so she was reading this book and said, Amanda, you have a lot of these things, your allergies and your asthma. And I also struggle with chronic constipation, and, all these things just really, I think maybe you should try it. And so it was an elimination diet. And I did that. I felt better, but I didn't feel amazing. And so I kept eliminating things until I felt really good. And later found out that that was the Paleolithic diet, was what I was eating. I didn't know that it had a name. I was just, trying things until something clicked. So that diet change to this nutrient-dense whole food diet changed my life. It turned my health around. I no longer needed asthma and allergy medications. I haven't had a migraine since I started the elimination diet, went through withdrawal, and that triggered a migraine. But after that, I haven't had one since. And so this way of eating changed my life. But I was still practicing conventional medicine, and I couldn't figure out, how do we bring, I bet other people would benefit, but I just didn't have the confidence of bringing that into my work. And it just still felt like, I was a primary care. You have 15-minute appointments, and so you just don't have time to talk to people about these sorts of things. I went to a conference for people who eat this diet, the paleo diet, and that is when I discovered functional medicine. They had some providers there that were speaking and talking about functional medicine and how that relates to, the nutrient dense diet and all these things. And this light bulb went off, and I was like, that is what I want to do. That's the way I want to practice medicine. I want to look at the whole person so that I can help heal like I've been healed. At that time, I honestly didn't know that there was more than just the diet. But at that time, that had done so much for me that I wanted to share. And so that's when I started the functional medicine journey and the training to learn about everything that goes into practicing functional medicine. So I am still a work in progress, just like if you've listened to the previous episodes, Thermanda is also a work in progress. I think all of us are a work in progress. I do not have an autoimmune diagnosis. I have a very strong family history. Pretty much all the women in my family have autoimmune disease of one sort or another. And I do have a positive ANA, which is a marker for autoimmune. And through all of my healing, my ANA has stayed positive. And so that's something I'm still working on. And I'm working with my own functional medicine provider, and we're digging and we're looking and we're trying to figure out what I can do to continue. But I can say I made that 180-degree turn from how I was living my life in my 20s to where I am today is so different. And at the time, before I changed my life, I was not a mother. We were actually struggling with infertility, which I now know is all rolled into this. But I was terrified. What am I going to do if I have children and I have a migraine? What's going to happen? And I can say that now we have 3 small children, and it's amazing to know that I can be there for them and I don't have that nagging, what if tomorrow I wake up and I don't feel well? So like I said, this has changed my life. It's made me extremely passionate for helping others to also find their health. And it is a journey, and it's a journey for each and every one of us. I don't think any of us will ever check, I'm healed, I'm done. I don't think we get there. I think we keep digging and we keep working and we keep trying to find ways to live our healthiest life possible.
Yes. And I'd like to add to that is that we will get to a place where we're feeling good, but we have to remember we still have to support our body for the rest of our life so that we don't go backwards. So
Right.
It's like I was talking with someone else, and I came to the realization that my autoimmune disease was my accountability partner to knock on my door and say, hey, Thermanda, you're kind of like not in alignment with yourself. Let's get back into alignment. And so that's how I view this journey that we're on.
I absolutely agree. Yes, you will get those signs that, hey, you got a little comfortable, time to rein it back in.
Yep, absolutely. And your story is very similar to mine, but very different. So we both had our own issues throughout our whole life. And I've experienced a migraine 2 times in my life. And that was right after giving birth to my second daughter. and they happened very close to each other. And I can't imagine having a migraine for 6 weeks long. Like mine lasted like one was just one day and the other one was like 2 days. And I was on the floor, bawling my eyes out and like in so much pain. I didn't know what to do with it. I felt nauseous. And my infant, maybe, I don't know, infant, almost 1 year old, I can't remember. I remember like looking at her and I'm sorry, I can't help you right now. I'm in so much pain. And I'm thinking to myself, how am I supposed to show up for my baby when I'm in this situation?
Yes, I mean, they're awful, like for sure. And
I can't imagine.
so
Wow.
I feel very blessed to have found this path because I can't imagine where I'd be. I think
Yeah.
I would have continued to progress to, additional collecting diagnoses, as we
Yeah.
like to say. I think I would have continued down that path, continued to collect diagnoses as I went. And so, yeah.
Yeah, I could see that because I was reading a book by, oh gosh, her name escapes me. She's Dr. Amy Myers.
Oh,
And
yeah.
she has a spectrum, the autoimmune spectrum. And everything that you spoke about was you're on your way to
Yeah.
autoimmune disease. Like I remember when I spoke with my first functional doctor, excuse, excuse me. And I was telling her that in college, I started developing seasonal allergies. Never had it before. And then all of a sudden, years later, I didn't have allergies anymore, but now I had autoimmune disease. And when I told her, now I don't really suffer from seasonal allergies, and she's like, that's because it turned into an autoimmune disease. So it's on that spectrum. So you were able, like your mom came in and trying new things for herself and gave you a gift so that you could kind of slow down that so that you
Absolutely.
go backwards on that spectrum instead of moving towards an autoimmune disease.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So, and just, also like with you speaking, because a lot of people ask, well, what did you do when you was first diagnosed? What did you do to start healing? And I saw a similarity in your path and my path is we didn't know what to do. We just tried something, right? We just started somewhere and we tried something and then it guided you to find functional medicine. Like every step that you take is getting you there to where you're
Yeah.
supposed to be. And do you have anything to add to that?
No, I 100% agree. And like you said, dive in somewhere. It doesn't matter where. I find most people tend to dive in with food because it's like you said in previous episodes, it's accessible. We understand food. We know food. I also find as a practitioner that I can get a lot of leverage with food. People can make big progress by making these changes. I'm not downplaying and saying that they're small changes. These are big changes in the way you live your life and the way you eat. But if you can make those changes, you can make huge progress. And then we start to whittle away at the other things that make up kind of that, I call it your foundation, your base, right, of your lifestyle.
Yeah. Yeah. Nutrition definitely was my path too. And because that is a huge part because we eat multiple times a day. So if we're not putting in the right, because food is information, not only is it medicine, but it's information and energy. So we're putting that information and energy in our body. So what kind of information and what kind of energy do you want to put in your body? And when you're putting the wrong information in, your body's going to react in a way that relates to that information that you put in your body.
Absolutely.
So once you start getting the right information into your body and your body's like, here we are. This is what we need
Yes.
to work properly. And so we start to calm things down, like come back to that homeostasis. And slowly, because that's not going to put us completely in homeostasis. Would you like to explain to the listeners what homeostasis is?
So homeostasis is balance, is the way I like to think of it, to come back to balance in our body. So your body is always trying to create balance and harmony, and so that it can work properly. And like Thermanda said, so if you're feeding it the wrong information, if you're feeding it food that causes an inflammatory response, if it causes inflammation in your body is going to try its best to hammer down that inflammation to bring you back to balance. And that is kind of the basis of autoimmune disease. Is your body is doing something you don't necessarily want it to do, but it's doing it because it wants to bring you back to balance, bring you back to that homeostasis where things are in control.
Yes. Yes, and you spoke about inflammation, and I think in your story I heard you talk about gut health, and or maybe it was before we hit record. I can't remember, but can you speak to those inflammation, gut health, how it intertwines with autoimmune disease? And even if you don't have autoimmune disease, this is for everybody, right?
Absolutely. Yes. Yes. So inflammation is, it's a double-edged sword. So inflammation is good because the reason that your body does this is because it needs it for survival. If you have a cut, you want your body to have an inflammatory response. You want inflammation to go to your cut to stop the bleeding, to clot, and then heal the skin and make sure there's no infection. All those things are good. That's what inflammation is supposed to do. If inflammation gets turned on all the time, so now instead of inflammation just sometimes when you get a cut, now if you have inflammation all the time, you end up with a chronic disease. And it's how you live your life, what you've been exposed to, what your genetics are, that dictate what that chronic disease is. So for some people, it's an autoimmune disease. For some people, it's diabetes and cardiovascular disease. For some people, it's depression. So what we found is inflammation seems to be the driver. It seems to be the cause of almost all chronic diseases that we study. And so, one, as a functional medicine provider, one thing that makes us different than conventional medicine is that we ask the why. So why is your inflammation turned on? Why do you have all this inflammation in your body? And for the most part, one of the reasons, I'm not saying it's the only reason because there's lots of reasons for inflammation to be turned on, but one of the reasons, especially in autoimmune disease, is your gut health. So what they've discovered is that something called leaky gut is a precursor for autoimmune disease. What that means is that you have to have leaky gut before you develop an autoimmune disease. Now, what's leaky gut? Leaky gut is when your cells of your, for those of you on YouTube, I'm going to talk with my hands because I do so much better when talking with my hands. But the cells in your gut should be nice and tight, nice and close together. If there's an inflammation, they start to separate. So now instead of the cells being nice and tight, close together, they start to move apart from each other. And now things are getting into your body that shouldn't be. If you think of the human as a donut, what goes into your mouth is technically not in your body. Your body has to take it across your gut lining to get it inside your body. And that's a good thing. That's a protective mechanism. And so that those really tight cells right next to each other, butting up next to each other, they don't allow the things that shouldn't be getting into your body. Now, as things start to separate, you can get infectious agents like bacteria and viruses. You can get partially digested food that's not fully digested yet, coming into your bloodstream. You can get toxins coming into your bloodstream. That puts your immune system on alert. 70% of our immune system is actually in our gut, because it's there at that border. It's the border patrol. It's right there looking. Okay, is there anything there that shouldn't be there? You know, and it's looking. When the gut lining starts to break down, now the immune system is like, that shouldn't be there. That shouldn't be there. All these things are coming through that shouldn't be there. That starts the inflammatory response, and that puts the immune system in overdrive, and can, if the person is susceptible genetically, what their exposures are, like I talked about, can develop into autoimmune disease. So what I do for people is look in the gut. If you come in to me, hey, I want to work on my autoimmune disease, I've got this diagnosis, what do I do? We're going to start in the gut. And so we're going to start in the gut by looking at, is there something, do you have leaky gut? And if so, we need to heal the leaky gut. Is there any sort of infection in your gut that we need to work on? Are there good bacteria in your gut? We want to make sure that, I think people nowadays have an idea that there are good guys in our gut that we want to feed, because you take probiotics and you've heard about, how great probiotics are. And so we just dig a little deeper into what good guys are there. Do you need a special probiotic? Do you need to remove some things? And you do all that through testing. So it's a stool test, which all my patients just love when
I've done it twice. I'm like, no, this again.
I know, yes. So you do have to give a stool sample, but you do it at home and you send it to the lab. I never see the stool, but it
But
is
we
a
do.
well. You do, yes, you do. But like Amanda, I've done it multiple times. You'll live through it. But it's such a wealth of information of what you find and how you can gear treatment. Now, one thing that, as functional providers, we're always coming back to is, okay, we know that you have these things we need to work on, and we can do it with medications and supplements and things like that, but we can never lose sight of the fact that we have to work on your foundation too. We have to work on your food. We have to work on your mental, emotional, spiritual health, because there's a huge gut-brain connection. So you can't fully heal your gut unless you're in a good place with your, I call it your mess, your mental, emotional, spiritual, right? So all those things, that holistic approach of looking at you as a full person, I'm not just diving down into your gut and have blindfolds on about these little things that we're working on. We have to encompass you as an entire person and look at you as a whole so that we can truly work on healing.
Yes, absolutely. Because I do find with my own journey is that food was a huge part. I mean, that has gotten me so far, but I felt like I hit a plateau with that. Like I wasn't going backwards, but I wasn't moving as forward as quickly as I was at the beginning. And that's when I was like, okay, I kind of got this food thing down. I could move on to the next thing, because you don't want to be overwhelmed and trying to you can't do it all at one time. It has to be baby steps. And going back to the leaky gut, what are common things that causes those? It's called tight junctions, right?
Right. So you want tight junctions. You want them nice and tight.
Yes. So what loosens that up?
Oh man. The way we live our lives, honestly. So, we talked about food. So the standard American diet, which is high in processed carbohydrates, low in fiber, low in antioxidants, low in, low in all the good stuff that we get from vegetables and fruits. So food is a player. Emotional stress is a huge player, and something that we don't address enough. So your mental state is not just up in your head. It affects your entire body, and that includes your gut. And you can see physiologic changes based on your mental state. Chronic stress. Now I know this is very similar to your mental state, but the way that we live in today's society is in a chronically stressed state unless you work very, very, very hard on taking time to reduce your stress and, relaxation, taking self-care, all those things. But the go, go, go culture that we live in is messing with your gut health.
Yes.
Toxins. So we live in a very toxic world. We're exposed, especially as women. There's some study and that women in their morning routine, in their, getting ready routine, are using traditional products, are exposed to something close to 300 chemicals every single day. And that's before they leave the house. That's before they walk out their door and get exposed to air pollution and, all the things. And so those toxins, your body works very, very hard at, we call it biotransformation, but basically getting rid, detoxing these chemicals, but they mess with your gut and open those junctions. Alcohol opens the junctions. So, that was a really long answer to your question, but the short answer is just the way we live is causing leaky gut. So the way I look at it, you have leaky gut until proven otherwise.
Yeah, especially because we know how most people are living. And some people I know, they're starting to live more off the land, living like how our ancestors, like long time ago. They're trying to get back to that because that's how the human body is made for, that kind of environment. We have come so far from where we were, like away from our primal living and instincts, that our bodies are reacting to that. So we're disconnecting from how human beings should actually live.
Absolutely. And another thing, how clean we are. So back to your living, that's another thing.
Yeah.
We're not
Yes.
exposed to as many different bacterias and germs and, things, soil that actually help our gut. So yes, all of that. That's another thing. The super clean way we live our lives is another way that we're harming our gut.
Yes, absolutely. I'm so glad that you brought that up because that's some things that I've changed too. And I forget about that because it's just it's been like that for a while. Like hand sanitizer, no. We're not doing that in our house. If I do get a hand sanitizer, it's more like essential oil based. But no, it's good old soap and water, because that sanitizer is that hand sanitizer and any other sanitizer that you use in the house. Not only it has chemicals that you are breathing in or absorbing from your skin into your body, you're killing off the good bacteria that are there to protect you. I mean, your skin is one of the first line of defense.
Yep. And it has a microbiome just like your gut.
I was just going to say that.
Yep, it does.
And we don't want to kill off that microbiome. Like this is a little personal, but like with deodorant, I mean, I've been doing natural deodorants for like, I don't know, probably like 10 plus years now. But I do find like after I had my second daughter, it wasn't cutting it anymore, but regular conventional or, regular deodorant doesn't cut it either. So I thought about getting like this one brand where it actually attacks the bacteria that causes the odor. And then I was like, oh, I need that. But then at the same time, do I want to mess with my microbiome on my skin at the same time? So I haven't done it because I was like, I don't even know if this is the right path for me.
Agreed. I tend to leave it alone. You know, the only soap we use is Castile soap in the house. And so cleaning products, microfiber cloth with water, you know, so it's trying to reduce chemicals, but also keeping the good guys around. We want them to stay.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. And yeah, it shows that how clean we are, but we're actually not healthier because of it.
Right.
And people, I see people, especially like with the pandemic, is I got the bleach out and I'm gonna kill all this stuff. And I'm like, no, don't do it. Don't do it. But yeah, so going back to what you said about why leaky gut came about, and I'm so glad that you broke it down in a way that it's basically because we're going against, well, that's my words, we're going against how we're supposed to be living. But yeah, it's trying to find a balance of how do we live in this world, but also support ourselves at the same time.
Yes. And that's the struggle, the daily struggle, right? Because we have to live in this world and we have to live in this culture. I mean, most of us, I'm sure there's some people who can totally disconnect and, you know, but not most of us don't have that luxury. So we do have to find ways of working around the constraints of society.
Yes, absolutely. And that's what I've come to realize is society and our culture is definitely working against us. And it's about being authentic with yourself, staying in alignment with yourself, and saying no to what the norm is. I have my air quotes for you, those of you that can't see me. Saying no to certain things that you feel like, yeah, that's not going to support me. And a way that I'm able to do that, because I've been practicing that for about a year now, like practicing of sticking. I mean, I've been pretty good to sticking to my guns, like, but at the same time, I am human and I feel the judgments from people, and I don't show up as my true self all the time because I'm afraid of what other people are going to think of me. And I was reading a book, and one of the quotes that I read in it was about that. Stop making yourself small, show up in this world as your true self, and tell yourself, this is what I tell myself, is it's none of my business what other people think of me. So when I start to feel like that nervousness of, oh, I'm showing up in the world, my big personality is showing up and other people don't like it. And then I tell myself, well, it's none of my business what they think of me, because it truly isn't, because they're not coming home with me.
Right. And they don't have your special set of circumstances, right? We all have to respect that everyone's coming from a different place. But I really like that, and I'm going to use that quote now.
Awesome. I hope others do. It's not my quote, but it is mine now. But yeah, and the reason why I bring that up, because that is part of healing. Because I'm coming to find that when you're not in alignment with yourself, you're not in homeostasis. And when you're making yourself small, your body's reacting to that. and that creates stress in the body. And that stress causes that inflammation, that leaky guts, and all other sorts of negative conditions in the body. So that's another part of my healing journey, is stepping into myself fully, letting my light shine. I don't care if I'm going to blind you with my light. That's your problem, not my problem, right? Like, I had to stop taking on other people's energy, other people's problems, because it's not mine to take. And I'm only harming myself, and I can't change their point of view. And so that's a big part of what I'm doing now, including the spiritual aspect. And I know in functional medicine, they teach you about that, because they teach about the person as a whole.
Right.
And
Your mind, body, and spirit. You're all three.
Yeah. So we do hear a lot about leaky gut and inflammation nowadays. Thankfully, it's coming into the mainstream some more. But and you talked a little bit about how the mind and the body, they're the same. They're not separate. And can you speak a little bit about the spiritual side?
So yes, I think most of the time my patients are just happy that I'm even asking about it, because when you look at the studies, most patients feel that their spirituality is a big part of who they are, but traditional medicine doesn't acknowledge that. So one, just acknowledging, yes, part of who you are is your spiritual connection. And so for those patients who have a very strong spiritual connection, one, that's extremely helpful for their healing journey. And a lot of times they find community in that spirituality as well, which community in and of itself is extremely important for healing and
Yes.
Building those connections. If the pandemic has shown us nothing, it's that we are communal beings, right? We need our people. So a lot of times those two go hand in hand. They don't have to, but for those people who have a very strong spiritual connection, you know, I encourage it, and I encourage them to continue to develop that spiritual connection. And a lot of times that is how we work in their stress management. So say if they are Christian, then, let's have you set aside a specific prayer time every day, and that's part of your spiritual connection, but also bringing your body to that parasympathetic rest and digest state. So we're kind of working on two things at once there without them really realizing it. And yes, definitely attend those church groups, because that's your community, and those are your people that you can lean on. For people who aren't religious, say, but have a very strong spiritual connection through something like meditation or yoga, again, we're just really encouraging them to continue those things, because they're a huge part, that is a huge part of their healing journey. And for those who don't have a spiritual connection at all, like you said before, baby steps, right? So we're talking about, okay, well, here's some things that we can do to start some breath work or meditation to baby step your way into a stronger connection with your spirituality. So it's a huge part of, it's a third of your mind, body, spirit, right? So you have to, one, acknowledge it. And I think that's the first step. And the first step that a lot of practitioners, it's a leap for them to make that. We are taught on the body. And then maybe there's some mental because of the, psychology, psychiatry side of medicine, but spirituality, we don't talk about that. No, and so for us to, one, acknowledge that is a big leap. And then two, helping people to acknowledge it for themselves and to delve into, what does that mean for you? What does that look like for you? How are you going to connect with your spirituality?
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. And I could speak on any listeners and any of your patients on not even having that kind of religious space or no connection at all to a higher being. And that's where I was most of my life. And now baby steps, that's what I did, because I knew after the food, like I got that down. I knew, okay, Fernanda, it is time to start. Are you hearing like a weird feedback?
No, it sounds good on my
Okay,
end.
because I was hearing like a robot sound.
Oh, no robots.
Okay, all right. So yeah, so it was baby steps of, all right, it's time to stop living in that survival mode, that sympathetic state of that stress response, that response of always looking for danger, because that's how I was able to survive so long. But now it is no longer serving me in the sense because it's always on and it doesn't have to be turned on. And the spiritual connection is a way for me to tone that down and turn it off, to allow myself to feel safe in this world. And so that was a huge, huge step for me. And I felt huge shifts in, excuse me, in my health with that. And it's just the beginning. And so slowly, day by day, I'm working on that connection by having that faith, like what is meant for me will come to me, and prayer. And that prayer was something that I had no idea what I was doing. I don't know how to pray, like that was nothing I was taught. And I saw other people do it on TV, or maybe like go to like family members' house and they maybe do grace before they eat, but that wasn't always. That's like maybe like on holidays or something like that.
Right. Yeah.
And so I was like, all right, let me just try it. And then I did buy books and look to other spiritual leaders. And it's all about finding someone to model after, finding someone who is already doing it or are in the process of doing it, and see what they're doing. Be curious. What are they doing over there? I kind of like that. I want that for myself. Let me try this out for myself.
And then just taking the pieces, right, that speak to you, as far as, I liked this from over here and this from over here, and you kind of create your own version, because there's not a right or wrong. And I feel like you said, am I doing this right? That there isn't a right or wrong.
Yes, that's beautiful. Thank you for bringing that up, because that's so true. Because we are all different, but we are connected, and we're very similar. So this is what I tell people: what works for me doesn't mean it's going to work for you. It's getting curious with yourself, learning about yourself through testing, but also by sitting with yourself and examining, why do I react a certain way? Why do I do this a certain way? And not in a way of judging yourself, like, oh, why do I do this? No, it's just out of curiosity and out of love to get to know yourself. Because how many people can raise their hand and say they truly know who they are, or what they enjoy, or what do they want? A lot of people don't know that, because we're so focused on other things that we forget about ourselves.
Yeah.
And
on the day-to-day, right?
Yeah, that survival mode.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just trying to survive today. I don't have time for myself. And that's where I think a lot of the root causes come from. Personally, you might have a different outlook than I do, but that's one of the root causes, is that we have lost ourselves. And I know for me, with my autoimmune disease, that was my wake up call, and say, Fernanda, what about us? We're over here. Like, I had these whispers my whole life. This is not right.
Right.
But you don't, I mean, like I said in previous my episodes, is I didn't know what to do with those whiskers until my body and my higher self was screaming at me like, hello, you can't
You
ignore
can't
this
ignore it.
anymore.
Right. Yeah. I'm going to make you pay attention now.
Yeah. And unfortunately, that's what it took for me to really start to look into myself, look deep into myself. And that started with not with me sitting with myself, because that's hard. That's hard to do. So, and that's what I'm learning to do now. But it started with, for me, the diet. And then I found a functional doctor, and we started dissecting what's, physically going on inside the body. But like you said, it's not just the physical, it's the mental and the spiritual.
Yes, absolutely.
So when you have a new patient come to you, that's basically what you do, is start with the gut.
Tend to start in the gut, unless there's something else that's just screaming, like you said, look at me, right? So, but for the most part, I tend to start in the gut. We definitely start with the foundation, the the diet. So that's diet, lifestyle, movement, sleep. Sleep is huge. We haven't touched much on sleep, but sleep is huge for healing. Stress, and then after we get that going, a lot of times, it's usually more than one thing. So once we get the gut in order, then we can start digging into other things. Do you have some heavy metal toxicity that we need to address? Is there some sort of chronic infection that we need to address? What do your adrenals look like? So all these things, I tend to find that it's not just one thing, and so we have to kind of chunk away at it and work. But and this is what I tell my patients, everything we do is bringing you to a better state of health. So we don't have to do it all at once. It's okay to just, chunk away at one thing at a time. Sometimes we'll get this testing back and they've got the deer in the headlights look, like, what's right? Everything seems to be wrong. But, we just work. We work together, and I just remind them, everything you do is working in the right direction. And another thing, I think that as far functional medicine is a whole new way of looking at a person and how the entire body is connected. But we don't throw out conventional medicine, right? So if you're someone who has an autoimmune diagnosis, is on a biologic, that doesn't mean, oh, I can't do functional medicine. What that means is this is a great time to start. I have plenty of patients who are on those drugs, and we work on all the underlying things, and sometimes they're able to get off of it, sometimes they're not. But even if they're not, they're so much more healthier. That's very poor English. They are so much more healthy than they were when we started, because of not just the lifestyle adjustments they've made, but some other, if we've been able to heal the gut or heal the adrenals, now they're in a much better place. They're more resilient, because once you have one autoimmune diagnosis, you're more likely to get additional diagnoses. So even if you are someone who requires medications, that's not a failure. It's okay. We can still work. We work together with conventional medicine, and we work together with you to get you to a place where you feel great.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, because that's so true. Yes, you might have to take this biologic or other pharmaceutical to just to get you comfortable, just to get you through. And let's work on trying to get you off. And that was something that I had to work on personally for myself. I did not take that route because it just didn't feel right to me. And I've learned to trust that part of me. I almost took that route, but something magical came into my life and I found functional medicine.
Right.
And plus I was at a state where I was listening right away. Like not right away, but when I was really like yelling at me, I was like, all right, let's figure this out. Let's figure this out. So I had to dig deep and figure that out. So I was able to get it at an early stage where I didn't have to have that biologic to keep myself comfortable. Mind you, I stood for 2 years because it was too painful to sit. But that was before I found functional medicine. But even that, I had discomfort, and I've learned to live with discomfort the majority of my life. So I knew discomfort. So I was okay to sit with that discomfort. I'm not saying it's right, because I feel like, in a sense, I wasn't showing myself love and compassion with that. Like I wasn't, air quotes again, I wasn't allowing myself to feel comfortable, because maybe that was something deep down inside that I felt like I had to suffer because maybe that's what I deserved, or maybe it was just my motivation. It could be a combination of both. But when I did start my journey and I was making changes, but I was still suffering in my changes, and I heard other people taking biologics, I was like, no, it's the devil, don't take it, and or functional medicine, conventional medicine, it's the devil. And that's not a good outlook. That creates stress in the body. And there's a place for conventional medicine, and they're doing the best that they can do with the tools that have been given to them. But the thing is it's not always the right tools when it comes to chronic diseases, and that's where I feel functional medicine has the proper tools for that. But everybody has their own journey, and I had to accept that and stop that judgment on other people, like, oh, you took that route.
Yeah.
And not like you didn't try to make changes in your life to better yourself and heal yourself. And so now I'm coming to really be, okay, stop the judgment, Miranda. Everybody has their own path, and they're doing the best that they can do with the tools that have been given to them. So, and normalizing that's in the forefront is medicine and like the pharmaceuticals. That's all we've been taught. And that's another reason why I started this podcast, is to let people know, yes, if that's the path that you took, that's okay. But there's also another way if you choose to take this other path. But again, that's your choice to make.
And they don't have to be mutually exclusive, so you can take both paths and we can work together. We can be a team.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was speaking with these other ladies. They have their own podcast, and they are working with functional medicine and conventional medicine, because functional medicine can get expensive. So they find doctors that will work with them, partner with them. So they'll go to their functional medicine doctors, and the doctors say, you should take this test, and this test. And then they take these tests to their conventional doctors and ask them, hey, can you give me these tests for me to take so that their insurance can cover it? So I'm like, that is a really, really creative way to save money. And that's a good way of having that teamwork. You have to have a team on your side, and you go back to that community, because we cannot do this on our own. It is very hard, it's very lonely, and we have to be able to surround ourselves with people who will support us and uplift us to keep going.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So thank you so much, Amanda, for being here and telling us a little bit more of what about functional medicine, your approach, and things that I can't offer myself, but it's something that you can offer. Before we leave, is there something that you feel would be beneficial to the listeners, especially to the ones that are starting out on their healing journey, or even like dipping their toe into the water of, is this possible for me?
I would say believe in yourself. It is possible. You don't have to dive in. It's okay to dip your toe. And if you want to dip your toe by committing to eat vegetables with your breakfast every day, that is a great way to start. So even though Thurman and I know both, when we dove in head first with the dietary changes. You don't have to. You can start small even there. Every single positive change that you make has a reflection in your body. And remember
Yes.
that.
Yes. Thank you for that. That's, yeah, like, I laugh because, yeah, you and we just dove in because we wanted to, well, I can speak for myself. I just wanted to start my healing process. Like right now, I'm done feeling discomfort. So I'm just going to change everything up with my diet. But not everybody's able to do that. And like you said, if you could just start taking away some items that doesn't serve you and adding in some food items that do, eating vegetables with your breakfast, that's something that I do that's my meals. My breakfast, lunch, and dinner kind of looks like my dinner because I have my vegetables in every single meal. And so people who's like thinking vegetables with breakfast, oh, like I'm thinking like cereal with vegetables.
No, probably not cereal with vegetables. Although, if you want to have your cereal and then maybe have like a cup of cucumbers and tomatoes, there you go. Some
Yeah.
vegetables with breakfast.
So Amanda, I know that you're located in Texas, and if you're in Texas and you want to reach out to Amanda and would like to work with her, where can they find you?
Yes, so I am a family practice at a family practice integrated clinic, and it's called Integrative Family Medicine of San Antonio. And I am legally allowed to see patients that are located in the state of Texas. So we do have telemedicine. So if you're in the state of Texas, but not located in the San Antonio area, I can still partner with you on your journey. Now, if you're
Awesome.
outside the state of Texas, I cannot legally help you because I'm not licensed in any other state, but the Institute for Functional Medicine, which is where I'm getting my functional medicine training through, they have a find a provider section. So you go to their website and it's a big like teal button, find a provider, and you can find someone who has also had this training and has the same mentality of the whole person view of health by putting in your zip code and finding someone in your area.
Yes. And and you'll find Amanda there too. So if you can't
Yes, I
find
am
her
there.
through, yeah, so you could just go to IFM, the Institute for Functional Medicine. That's what I did. So when I was like learning about functional medicine, that's what I did. I went straight to their website and I clicked on that button, find a practitioner, and a whole list of practitioners showed up for me. And so what I would like to add to that is, because there is a lot, go through it because they'll list out what their niches and what they specialize in. So I looked for, okay, to whittle down the list was, okay, autoimmune disease. Okay, so now the list is smaller. And then I just went and kind of went to maybe their website to read up about them to see if any they resonated with me. And I called them and asked questions. And so that's a good way. And I've had multiple functional medicine practitioners, because you have to be able to work with somebody that you resonate with. And I resonated with all of them, but I felt like each one was able to dig deeper and deeper with me. So so that's a good way of trying to find a functional medicine practitioner.
Yes, absolutely. And I'll add to that, our clinic and a lot of others will offer we have a 20-minute consultation call. So before you come see me or anything, we just have a phone chat for 20 minutes to see, are we a good fit for each other? And you can ask those questions to the provider. So potentially also ask, hey, do you have any sort of free consult that I can speak with the provider and make sure that we're a good fit and that we resonate with each other?
Awesome. Thank you for that tip. That's nice. And that kind of brings, we're going to wrap up, but I feel like this is an important question, because to ask is, how can someone prepare not only for the first appointment with you, but for every appointment?
So the first appointment, something that I find very useful is, well, one, make sure you fill out all the paperwork that the practitioner wants, because in functional medicine, we truly read all the paperwork. So the 10 pages of new patient paperwork is truly important. So definitely fill that out. And
Before you move forward, I just want to pause. Tell them exactly what this paperwork is and why it's important for you to read this.
So yes, this paperwork is not the why are you here today? Circle the area that hurts. Okay, check, done. This is how were you born? Were you born via vaginal C-section? What was your childhood like? What illnesses or injuries did you have? What was your adulthood like? We look for exposures. There's a huge symptom questionnaire. In the last 3 months, have you been feeling these things? A food diary. We have a 3-day food diary. Family history is very important. So we start the comprehensive look at you before you step in the door, and we read it before you step in the door, which is another big difference. I think sometimes you feel like,
yes,
well, didn't I filled out that paperwork. I told you should know that,
Yeah, right?
Yeah, so we read it. So that's really important. And then previous labs and visits, especially, if you are someone with an autoimmune disease and you've seen a rheumatologist, I would love to see the rheumatologist's paperwork, their notes and their labs, because that gives us a baseline that we can work from. So that's the initial visit. Preparing for additional visits, have a list of questions that you have, because invariably, if you don't write it down, you get in there to see me and you're like, oh, I had questions. So write them down.
Yes.
And then it is really helpful for me to, if you do another, I have my patients fill out the questionnaire. How are they feeling? Like, what symptoms are they having? I like to see that before the visit. And I like to see another food diary. Have we made some positive changes? Where can we do some work, things like that. So those are two things that I like to see, not just at the first visit, but in an ongoing basis as well.
Yes, and I would second that, writing it down, because you get to it. These appointments are not like 15 minutes long. You get to sit down and really discuss, and your practitioner will dive deep with you. You guys are working together. You guys are detectives together. They're your partner. And as you go, a lot of work is done in these appointments, but the majority of work happens outside of the appointments. And that's when the questions are going to pop up. So what I did was, as I went through my day-to-day and I start to try to do what my provider wanted me to do, I was like, oh, well, this doesn't work so well, or how come this happens when when I do this? So I would take out my phone, which I have right here. I would take out my phone in the note sections, and I had a note that says questions for my doctor. And I would add those questions in as I went along so that when it was time for my appointment, we would go over my lab works and everything else. And then it's time for me to ask questions, and I'm like, okay, let me get my phone. And even my provider would be like, do you want to get your phone out? Are you ready? Like, she already knew.
She knew it was coming. But we
Yes.
love that. We love when you come in, because one, that shows me you're engaged, and then you're
Yes.
working hard outside, and that's what I want. And Thermanda's right. The work happens not when you're having the face-to-face. The work happens outside the office. And so bring that back to the office so you can ask those questions and get some insight. So yes, I second that.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure having you on. And I know that so many people are going to hear this, and something within them is going to ignite, and it's going to trigger something within them. Like a light bulb's going to turn on, and it's like, okay, I think I have a different approach that I can take. And it's bringing back that hope in them. Yes.
There is
So
hope, and you can do it.
yes, yes. And I'm glad you said that, because that's what I'm saying is you can do this, and there is hope. And there are people that are here to help guide you on your healing journey. So you can reach out to them, and reach out to Amanda, reach out to me, reach out to anybody else that is in the direction of where you're headed.
Absolutely.
So thank you so much.
Thank you, Thermanda.